Tarek, can you go on mute, please? Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next panel discussion, which will be about how to streamline your maintenance, achieving proactive repair, smooth operatives, and enhanced security. I'll now pass you over to our moderator, Makram Hani, the CEO of Arms & McGregor International Realty. So if I can ask all of our speakers to now turn their web cameras on and unmute themselves. And over to you, Makram.
Thank you, Rebecca. Welcome to our panel discussion, part of PropIT 2020. I hope you enjoy this panel discussion, discussing how to streamline your maintenance, achieving proactive repair, smooth operatives, and enhanced security. I'll let our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Tarek, and then we'll head on with our discussion for today. Tarek, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Makram. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tariq Nizamuddin. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Ijada Asset Management Company.
Perfect. Tariq, thank you for that. Christos, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thank you, Makram. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christos Emanuelidis. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Danaos Project Software Solutions, a company that is actually specializing in Contech and PropTech software solutions.
Perfect. Thank you, Christos. Fahad?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Makram. My name is Fahad Mohammed. I'm the Director of Facilities Management for DR Community Management.
Thank you, Fahad. As you see, gentlemen, our experience here is diverse, and we have a very interesting discussion running, or that will run in a second. I wish that any of our viewers and listeners who has any questions to please head on with your questions, and we'll be able to answer it at the end of the discussion. I will start with you, Christos. I will start with if you can tell us about the piece of tech that you believe have most impacted the FM operations over the last 12 months.
I think that we see that a lot of technological trends to be introduced on sites and on the field in terms of image surveillance, sensoring, gathering data almost real time, as well as new techniques of actually creating what we call business intelligence on the level of having proactive type of maintenance plans. That means making sure that something won't break just before even itself knows that it will break. This way, systems, they need to be comprehensive in a lot of ways. They mean they actually need to associate and conglomerate both corrective, preventive, and ad hoc maintenance under the asset maintenance serviceability concept.
Perfect. Actually, you've opened 7 subjects within what you said, because many of those points are very interesting discussion points that we should head with. But I'll ask the same question to Fahad, please. What do you believe is the piece of tech that most impacted our industry or the FM industry over the last 12 months?
In the last 12 months, what piece of, I think so the biggest impact was the communications, because we had to scale back on the number of meetings that we had, scale back on the number of trainings that we actually can have face-to-face, and so rather zoom it down to the guys on the ground. And that was again a challenge, because typically our cleaning operatives, our MEP operatives, they're not tuned towards such a sort of, I mean, actually, even we were not so tuned to operate remotely, but this was a great challenge because we had to adapt these challenges on a very rapid phase, because the moment we had warnings from the required government agencies to reduce the number of staff or reduce the number of people traveling in one place, reduce the number of people sitting inside a room, we had to face these challenges. And especially where you have new deployments, there were a lot of new buildings which was being commissioned. So that was actually a great piece of technology, a gap that we had to address on a very rapid time period. And so obviously going in on a remote platform, giving access for the CAFM, as Christos was mentioning, the CAFM solutions had to be really pushed on. The operators had to be trained so that we can capture enough data so that the people sitting at the back, that's the supervisors, and as well as the engineers or the managers could take the required decisions on time, because obviously we had a lot of change in the method that we operated this time, because based on the regulations that has been given by the municipality and various authorities, we had to increase the cleaning cycles. The method of cleaning had to be changed. So all these had to be communicated. And that's one of the biggest challenges I feel that had to be deployed onto a grassroots level. It was not on the management. Obviously, the management should, had to understand the dynamics and push that into the grassroots level. So that was the biggest challenge. And so technology had to be, the speed at which we were deploying the technology had to be increased as well.
That's one of the advantages of, if we can say that the pandemic had advantages, that we adapted probably, or we needed to adapt pretty fast and adopt a new technology. Please go ahead.
We were forced to adapt. We didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
It was a make or break situation, so we had to really push in hard.
And the point here that you've pointed out, which we will definitely discuss today, you had to scale back on the number of personnel on the ground, but you had to increase the workload, or you had to increase the service provided or improve the service provided, which definitely was another challenge that you and every other party dealing with FM had to deal with. Tariq, what do you feel is the best or the piece of technology that has best impacted you at Ijada or the industry over the past 12 months?
Well, everybody knows how was the past 12 months. So it was an abnormal situation. We started the year. The majority of the FM companies and the FM service providers and the suppliers were working on solutions that will enhance productivity, enhance safety, and health and safety in general, labor and labor reduction. Clients were looking for options for resource optimization, cost saving, and then the pandemic started. So we had to adapt to the requirement of the pandemic and at the same time continue in our plans. The technologies that were implemented during the pandemic, mainly obviously for not only for FM, not only in real estate, in all the industries, which is the communication that I had touched about, which is everybody was surprised that the online meetings were more effective than the traditional meetings. A lot until now we are using here. Now we have a conference using Zoom. Hot desking technologies started. This will be a very hot topic and a very important topic. A lot of companies, government and the private sector, are considering seriously reducing the office space by 50 to 70%, depending on hot desking concept. So hot desking will require a lot of technology. We need for the booking, for the disinfection, for the usage of the desk. So this is already started. We didn't see yet a comprehensive solution that cover all the requirements. You have bits and pieces, but I think that during the coming year, we're gonna find a lot of interesting solutions that will cover this topic. Another technology that we started seeing is the more usage of machines that will complement the manpower and reduce the dependency on manpower, which is mainly we're talking about robots, we're talking about drones, which is the majority of them are still in pilot stage.
Perfect. Tariq, thank you for that. If we can, we'll run back to Christos, but prior to us getting back to you, if we can improve the quality of voice slightly on your end, it would be appreciated. I'm sure it will be great for our listeners. Okay, so you'll have time for us to do the runaround and back to you again. Thank you for that, Tariq. Christos, you've pointed out something very important: collection of data, streamlining of data, streamlining of maintenance operations, which will impact proactive maintenance and our ability to do proactive maintenance and surveillance, which we will get to in a second. However, streamlining maintenance operations in general has been impacted by technology. How has it been impacted, and how are new solutions helping companies do such operations in a better way?
Yes, if I want to put a heading on that, I will call it quality service delivery management. In other words, what we want to do is we want to act with the highest quality of service and the highest efficiency and productivity towards our field crews, making sure that the customers that we are actually serving, they're actually getting the best service they can get. That means their assets, they are not breaking down, that we are actually having a well-maintained environment, health, in terms of health and safety, especially during these COVID times. But I think at this particular stage, the systems need to orchestrate, if I say so, operations on 4 different levels. One level has to do with the field personnel. The other level has to do with the back office management mainly and the dispatchers. The third part has to do with the subcontractors, which is also a very big part of this formula. And last but not least, the customers. So basically, we are looking on a composite systems that they will do trouble ticketing, and they will actually do dispatching, they will do workforce management, they will do tracking of people and spares and this and the other. So systems become more and more complex, and on top of that, we have some kind of peripherals, I will say so, devices, including drones, including sensors, that they are getting this kind of information to the core of it. So we, as software developers, beyond of actually getting this kind of information and making context out of content, it's also very important to actually, highlight important KPIs and offer them as, let's say, buzz lines to different types of audience based on their roles and the part as a stakeholders to the overall ecosystem of operations.
Perfect. So you have too many moving parts in the business in general, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to let all of those parts talk together and in a manner that makes it more efficient. Because I believe we have an issue on efficiency when it comes to maintenance and facilities management in general, isn't it? I will go to Fahad here with a very important question, in my opinion, that everyone asks himself. What are the biggest challenges that you need solutions for in your building? So currently, you have plenty of buildings under your management, and you have challenges that you live day in, day out, that you need tools and solutions to sort for you. What are those?
Thank you, Akram. The solutions itself is a problem today. Because we have a lot of solutions available in the market. A lot of vendors are coming up with brand new solutions. There are a lot of startup companies who are offering amazing, brilliant piece of technology. But when you come into decision making, then that's where the biggest challenge comes. Today, if you look at it, as you all said, if I need efficiency, if I need to operate in a manner that is sustainable for a long period of time, and that's when I need to utilize the best technology. And the question is, how do I choose the best technology if I have challenges in interoperability, or, for example, let's say transition. Today, for example, we're talking about CAFM solutions. In CAFM solutions, we have when I hire, I don't have a CAFM solutions on my own, but I implement or recommend my service provider to actually use the CAFM solution. Now, in case if we have to do a transition from one FM provider to another, and that's where the changes happens, because the software or the ecosystem that they may use might be different, and the transition becomes very, very crucial, at the same time very challenging as well. So that is where today we face a challenge in the market, where interoperability or transition. And because whatever data, as Christos was highlighting earlier, the data that has been recorded by a certain operative for a certain period of time, let's say about 2 or 5 or 3 years or 4 years, etc., needs to be transferred as a knowledge to the next vendor who's coming on board. So that is one of the biggest challenges that I see. And the second is data protection. Today, everything is happening on the cloud. So how does the FM companies or companies such as ourselves really look at the security of data? Because that's very important, because that's your operating data that can be lost out into unrequired hands, for example.
Exactly. And you are giving the data to your service provider. You are giving the data to your service provider. So yeah.
True. And data protection is one of the biggest challenges. Because why? Because we do not have a framework or a guideline yet. So there is no framework that how we as property managers or asset managers or community managers operate, and how does our service providers protect us from breaches, because we need to be aware, because people are getting more intelligent. Today, the data is key. There might be owners who might end up suing you later on at a later period of time, because they understand the value of data. So that is again directly leading you into compliance of legal requirements. So
you mentioned the first challenge. Sorry, Fahad, you mentioned the first challenge. So do you believe that you need standardization so that you can integrate and change from one FM provider into another in an easier way?
Maybe I can't call it standardization, because obviously every country or every company who is introducing technology might think differently, might have a different system or method that they do the programming. But some sort of regulation or some sort of guideline so that shall be kept, so that we can say, for example, let's say a lot of PMS companies now operate on BACnet over IP. So that is a protocol that has been established across the world, saying that this is an open platform. If you are going to, for example, even if it's Siemens, let's say Honeywell, you talk with Johnson Controls, everybody can still operate using this particular protocol BACnet over IP. In the similar fashion, if we can get some sort of a protocol or some sort of language where different software companies can start talking to each other, regardless of who's my service provider, regardless of what software is my service provider using, when he has to go and somebody has to come, it can be transitioned. So it can be operated in a seamless fashion, so that there's no loss of data, there's no loss of time in rectifying, because right now the stabilization period is taking a big time. You're talking about 3 to 6 months on a major projects to get that data in streamline. So which is a loss of time, loss of man hours, right? And the amount of work that needs to be taken care by the managers. So this is where obviously, go ahead, sorry.
I'll hide this question about the tool that would sort that out. Maybe it's a medium where the storage happens in, and then regardless of the software you use, it talks to that exact medium. I'll leave it for Christos. Exactly. I'll move here to Tariq. Thank you, Fahad. Two important points you've made here. Tariq, are you seeing that you have challenges specifically when it comes to security prevalence and proactive maintenance? Challenges that you need tools to sort out, and the tools that aren't probably available today?
You're talking two different subjects. Let's start with the maintenance and hard services in general. The issue that we have today is the majority of the companies are depending on or using the standard maintenance protocols and maintenance mainly on a SRG 20 for every single type of buildings. while the way forward, the way we are moving is towards the predictive maintenance and utilization of, similar to what Christos had mentioned, utilization of big data and machine learning in achieving building operational efficiency and at the same time achieve saving in, you have two types of saving: reduce the cost of maintenance and reduce the utility bill and enhance the life cycle of your assets. How we are achieving this? It's very straightforward. We install hardware devices and interconnected throughout the buildings, enabling them to send and receive accurate data in real time. We collect the data and process them to provide a deep insight into the building performance. And using artificial intelligence and machine learning, automatically identify opportunities to eliminate energy wastage and give you a real-time view about the performance of the assets without the need of any manual interference or manual human analysis. So basically, the software or the machine learning is visualizing the opportunity and sending instructions to the technical team, to the technicians, through the CAFM system to take actions that will have a predictive approach that will tell you that this machine requires this type of maintenance. Otherwise, you will have a breakdown after 2 weeks. And at the same time, will achieve cost saving in reducing the energy bill.
Probably IoT will play a major role in helping you do that.
It is part of it, definitely. It's IoT started the IoT by installing the devices.
Yes.
It's the IoT and machine learning, yes.
Perfect. And the second part of the question, if you don't mind.
If you security, the challenge of security that it is currently is, in addition, of course, systems are the CCTV systems, the monitoring system are advancing in a very big way. You've seen, I don't know if you're familiar with this system that is implemented in Abu Dhabi City and Dubai. But still, when it comes to private sector and the security companies, the traditional model is depending 100% on man-guard and deploying man-guard, which is a very difficult, especially with you are having a large, especially in our region, because we are depending on the majority or 99% of the manpower, security manpower are expats. You have to, the logistics is a nightmare. And the pandemic added an additional nightmare to our life. It was one of the biggest challenges that we faced during the pandemic was the management of the manpower. Talking about thousands of people, you have to transport them, feed them, quarantine, tests, all of this. So what we did is that we worked with an industry partner to introduce a robotic solution to our workforce that complemented the manpower. We were not saying that the robot will replace the human being. They will not be. Definitely, we will continue having man guards as a human being, but robots will complement this with this role. We have already started. This is started in Q1 2020. It was deployed in Yas Mall, and currently it is. If you go to Global Village, you will see it securing Yas Mall and supporting our man guards there. So the robots work on patrol on defined routes and fitted with both PTZ and panoramic cameras. It can be linked to the existing VMS system, and it can operate independently or can be controlled through an operator via the central control room.
That's pretty interesting. So you deployed that already in Al-Yas Mall and in Global Village, yeah?
Global Village, yes. It has, you can put face recognition, thermal imaging, any type of camera can be integrated with the system.
Perfect.
It has two ways communication. You can communicate with the crowd's control room, can approach somebody in the crowd, talk to them, warn them, give them direction.
Perfect. Very interesting, Tariq. I believe, as you said, robots and machines will not replace the role of human beings, but will probably replace some tasks or be doing some tasks that we don't need to do in the future.
Yes.
Christos, here is the question that Fahad have asked. What's the solution? So what's the solution for a client, and Fahad, I believe in this case, is the client of the suppliers, and when he changes a supplier, there is systems that need to be integrated, and there's data that needs to be migrated. And as he mentioned, standardization probably is not something possible between different solution providers. So what's the solution?
Well, first of all, I feel that Fahad's point is something that is a very common challenge for a lot of facility management companies and property managers. The problem is that they have constructed assets on hand and they need to extend their service life. And in order to do that, they have the challenge of actually integrating in a different ways, different types of stakeholders with different types of systems and with different type of data floating in from different types of, inbound, let's say, streams. Another important part that I totally agree with Fahad also on that is the fact that we are having actually security challenges. That means data now it's centrally, let's say, stored in silos, data centers, computer rooms, and so on and so forth, always vulnerable, to external attacks to be used for different types of ways. So to make the long story short, I would say that the companies, they should look actually for vertical software providers. And by meaning vertical software providers, I feel that companies that they know the business know-how and the main processes and procedure that they actually adhere to, they will have a possibility of delivering a better high-end solution, and the solution that will actually aggregate in a data warehouse type of format all this kind of data, providing access on different types of levels, specific types of users. So in other words, we are getting data from whatever system the subcontractor is using, from whatever system the client wants to actually place the ticket, and whatever system it's actually under an assets or a building management system controls the different types of assets. We are bringing data inside and we are providing meaningful analytics, doing some kind of forecasting when it's possible and recommendations. So the business analytics part goes to the machine learning that obviously the next day will be to actually have, let's say, more proactive type of recommendations in hand. That's how basically the whole industry around vertical software in facility management is tackling the problem.
But what solves the issue of migration, of possibility of migration of data between an old supplier and a new supplier?
For me, it shouldn't be any kind of issue there, because a decent vertical software supplier should be aware that the way that the data is actually structured and is going to be disseminated among different types of stakeholders should actually adhere to the main principles of creating the schemas, the table structure of the databases, and so on and so forth. So we'll probably.
So Christos, in this situation, the client, Fahad in this case, will need to use his own software rather than rely on the supplier's utilization of software.
Yeah, but this will be an expensive option for the client. Some clients are using this, and sorry, Christos, if you don't mind, let me just okay, because I have a lot of headache because of this. When a client,
you sit on the other side, Tariq. That's why.
Yes, when the client is using his CAFM system, it doesn't mean that I will not use my CAFM system, because my operation, my procurement, my warehouse management depend on CAFM system. So what I will have to do is we'll have to do integration between my CAFM system and the client CAFM system. If the client wants me to use 100% my CAFM system, it's easier for him, easier for me, and I will give him access to my system so he can read reports, generate reports, and see the information that he wants. The issue here that Fahad touched, which is the security. I was on the client side. I worked for 6-7 years on the client side. I understand, especially when you're working with big corporations, security of your data is very important, especially if you are a government or semi-government. Some rules, the government rules will not allow you to put your data with a third party, especially even in the cloud. Also, they consider it as a high risk. This is a question that is not answered. There is no right and wrong. It's a challenge that clients and service provider are facing, especially when you have different types of softwares. I use Maximo. Some of my clients they use FSI. They use different type of softwares, and with every mobilization, you have to spend a lot of time. And each client have their own implementation. The way they implemented the CAFM system does not mean having Maximo. If I have a Maximo, it doesn't mean the Maximo that Fahad has the same.
Because you've probably manipulated the system to suit your operations in the best way possible.
Exactly.
Customization is
yeah.
Perfect. Christos, thank you, Tarek, for that. Christos, I want to continue with another question. What should providers look at when they're searching for the right software to use?
I think the first thing is the niche business logic. That means to be a system that actually speaks their own language, understands their own challenges, and to be in a position to actually have the maturity to be installed and launched within a few months, if it's possible. Another important part is to be localized and well customized. That means it's unacceptable, for example, to go to countries that the native language is Arabic in a lot of ways, and systems that don't actually are converting, or they're actually having an Arabic type of version. Needless to say, the rest for the currencies and the procedures and the local laws and stuff like that. Another important stuff is in my perspective, also the consulting team that they will actually do the execution. There is a very big difference between different types of advisory service and consulting IT companies that they have in hand a product, and due to their lack of knowledge on the area that they do the installations, they actually destroy the reputation and the brand of the software itself. And I also feel that a brick and mortar type of situation within the countries that you operate as a software provider is something very important. So, if I was a client, I would always look for somebody that can actually pick up on the phone and talk to them and know how to get answers from it. I think this is the epitome of what I want to highlight on.
Christos, how proactive are we becoming, or predictive rather than proactive?
Tarek, actually, he had some very good points on that, but regarding how data should be integrated. But I think the central point here, the one source of truth, as everybody says, it's one and only one, and this is the asset. It doesn't matter if you are using FSI, Vortex, Maximo, or millions of other systems that they exist, and I'm sure that all of them, they are bundled with features and functionalities. The idea is that there are different types of systems with different types of assets, and assets serviceability operations. Just to give a highlight, when you have a large energy plant or a large, let's say, motorway, it's way different than maintaining a building, right? The maintaining high-rise skyscraper is different than maintaining, in a lot of ways, a very horizontal type of building construction on plants and developments. So different types of assets, and the way that we are actually seeing the problem, they will actually be optimized and be used with different types of systems. More or less, I think this is the thing. But asset, it's the main thing. And since asset is the main thing, the platform that will be centrally used by any kind of company should take into consideration that we have different types of systems, as I said, and the data should actually be data warehoused, cleansed, and homogenized within the platform itself in order to provide meaningful information for the asset, for the quality of the service of the customers, and for the increase of efficiency productivity. Return on investments on systems like ours is very important, because companies, they actually have to maintain through technology something which is very tangible, something that actually makes it's very challenging also, because it creates a lot of high security types of impacts in a lot of ways. People, they will consider, for example, how bad an air condition can actually be during a summer in Dubai, or if it will break, or something's going to happen with an elevator on a skyscraper. So systems, they actually need to be smart enough, and they are getting there, in order to actually address the assets and the serviceability, extending the life cycle.
Thank you, Christos. Fahad, and I'll go back to Tarek on this, because I believe how proactive are we becoming or again, how predictive are we becoming is very important. But Fahad, I want to pass on to you with the pandemic hitting us all. It hit the bottom lines of every company around, and general tech is not cheap, okay? And tech is considered a cost center in general, although it has an impact on efficiency and cost saving and cost benefits, but it is a cost in general and considered a cost center. How has cost cutting in the past year impacted implementation of new technology and or continuing with plans to implement technology that was planned before?
I mean, with respect to implementing technology, I think so. Some of the companies are still on. We are still focused on getting our technology online, which we have started the work months ago, and we haven't stopped. But yes, the pandemic has caused us to go back and revisit what sort of benefit does it, because what we feel is, unlike the previous years, the change is quite soon nowadays. You have to keep reevaluating yourself. When the first recession struck in 2008 and 2009, so we had to sit back and reevaluate ourselves at what are we doing, where are we going to in the next 5 years. But for example, what happened this year in March when Corona came, nobody was expecting it. So we literally had to go back and relook at our drawing boards, that what is the requirement by our customers, what is that we have to deliver, what is the level of service delivery that we have to offer. So we had to relook at these parameters and pick up the most important parameters that is of relevance at this point in time, and then rework our technology based on that. So for example, let's say BIM. So we have been talking about BIM for many years. A lot of construction projects have been using BIM, but if you really look at it, how many successful construction projects post BIM have been able to transfer it to the operation maintenance team with all the records that is required? Yes, I have few successful projects that I've seen that today I'm not using an archive room full of drawings. Now, if I need, or technician need, my engineer needs a drawing, we can go back and click of a few buttons, download it from an online cloud. So these are the sort of changes that have come. But with regards to technological implementation in terms of softwares, in terms of improvements that we have to make, I don't think so that we should really stop, even that the market is taken a step back. It's about reevaluating.
Are you able to prove that the return on investment, because again, your operations depend much on efficiency. Yeah, and your operations are generally a very big cost element of the building life cycle and building running. Are you able to show clear evidence of ROI, which I believe should be easier for you than many other industries, so that you continue deploying
it's
tech?
purely based on your, based on the initial due diligence that you have performed. If you have actually done, so when I bring on technology, I look at a couple of things. One, is it really a cost optimization tool that is going to help me optimize my operations, improve my operations, give a better satisfaction to the staff who's actually working and the customers who will be directly impacted by the service. And the other thing which we normally end up doing is either it's part of the CSR, it's part of marketing, or is it something that we want to give extra as a value addition to my customers. So if we have actually looked at the first one, which is optimizing my operations in the best possible manner, ensuring that my team on the ground has full support to operate and utilize this technology to ensure that the services are delivered on time. So if this parameter, if we have gauged at the very start, then it becomes easier to look at your ROI. But if you're going to look at from a marketing perspective, is it something that I wanted to launch with a big bang? Yes. So this is something that is questionable at this point in time, because everybody has taken a step back in your marketing. Everybody's taken a step back in your training budgets. Yes, it is a fact. But it purely depends, I believe, purely depends from a company to company perspective, that where have you put in your cash? Is it with a plan for a long term to optimize your operations, so to make it more efficient, or is it just that you had big dreams?
Thank you, Fahd. Tariq, obviously, we don't have the luxury anymore to live the non-efficiencies that we used to afford in the past, yeah? And I believe the pandemic probably hit when we were trying to implement all the elements to be able to be perfectly predictive in most communities around, yeah? Most communities do not have that part of tech implemented yet around us. So you're working with many clients. How predictive are we becoming? Are we becoming predictive enough? Or is the pandemic, or did the pandemic push us to become again so reactive?
This is a very sensitive subject that you are touching, because unfortunately the challenge here is that budgets are not controlled in most of the clients, or some of, I won't say most, a lot of clients. Budgets are controlled by finance, are not controlled by the facility management and operation. So finance automatically, when it comes to cost saving, budgeting, they go directly marketing and facility management. They automatically go reduce the operation cost and reduce the marketing cost. Because of this, the facility management departments are forced to reduce the scope. And sometimes I've seen cases, I rejected the projects with the client that they requested that we only do reactive maintenance. They canceled the planned and preventive maintenance. So they wanted to reduce the manpower and work only on reactive for two reasons. First, they tell you that it is too risky to have residential units, is to have the technicians going inside the unit, and at the same time, because of the budget cut. From as a professionals, we as Ijada, and we believe that this, if you do this approach, will affect the life cycle of the assets. If an AC, if a simple split unit, if you don't maintain it, you have to replace it after 4 years. If you maintain it properly, it will live 20, 25 years. But on the short run, yes, you will achieve saving. You will go to the FM department will go to the CFO and tell them, oh, we achieved the saving. We have achieved 20, 30%. But on the long run, we are not saving, because you are damaging the asset.
So have the pandemic hit our plan to become that predictive?
We were heading towards this, and yes, it was. It slowed down. Nobody today nobody during 2020 was ready to invest in this direction, unfortunately. But things are better now. I'm very optimistic about the coming months, and I think it will resume. We will continue in the plans.
Perfect.
Yeah, but the impact of pandemic was not.
So although it put some part of tech on steroids, it slowed down others, which probably is so important as well.
It depends on the organization and how strong the FM department and the concept of facility management and the culture of facility management is popular in this organization.
I can't imagine, by the way, guys, we only have 9 minutes left. This can run forever, and I'm enjoying it. I hope you are as well. For all our listeners and viewers, please feel free to head on with any questions you have. I'll go to Christus here with a subject that I'm curious to see and know if we are doing good at. There is a gap between regularly us gathering the reported data, estimation, and implementation. Are we bridging that gap?
Yes, there are some kind of challenges this way, but I think systems are becoming smarter and smarter in terms of, consolidating the data and making sense out of it. Just to give an example, first of all, systems that will have a higher and low threshold. So if there is an asset is not working with this kind of logical types of limits, upper and lower, automatically they will reject any kind of erroneous data that will fly in. They will consider that not normalized and they will reject it. Another important part is that a lot of systems, including ours, they are working on Monte Carlo simulations. That means they will populate gaps of data in order to create a bigger sense out of them in terms of creating the trends of standard deviation and stuff like that. Also, last but not least, I feel that the assets themselves, they are becoming smarter and smarter by actually creating what we call fuzzy logic, providing this kind of data in a very well streamlined format and giving us access to it in order to make the visualizations, the graphs, and whatever is needed. At the end of the day, I feel that we will be reaching a higher efficiency and productivity, let's say, scope, a goal, by making sure that the systems, users, and processes, they will be aligned in a way, and that in order to happen, they will require managers that they will actually have a very good understanding of how operations takes to their data analysis.
Thank you, Christos. Fahad, to make sense of that, are we really using machine learning and AI to our advantage in the industry currently or not?
Well, it's picking up. There's a lot of trials and a lot of effort being put on various machine learning aspects, be it from the maintenance part, be it from especially on the energy management front, because that is really, really key, because collecting the right required of data from multiple buildings and multiple assets and compiling it and making the sensible information out of this data. So obviously, instead of using hundreds of data analysts, obviously the computers can do a much faster and better job. So that is being utilized. There's a lot of discussion and investigations happening on RPA, which is robotic automation of process automation. So the whole idea is to reduce the number of FTEs, the manpower that is required on a certain process, or a recurring and a cumbersome, mundane processes, which can be actually done by computers on a much faster level. Even
can I add to this another question? Sorry to intrude, Fahad. We received a question. Please. I would like to add it here to save time and at the same time to benefit more of your knowledge. One of our listeners said, if you had to pick one technology, which do you think will change property maintenance most in 2021? And I'll ask you this question, and I'll go after that to Tarek with it, and then Christos.
No, it is a beautiful question, but the only limitation is it is purely based on a case. So if I'm going to say any specific technology, it wouldn't be right. I mean, it would be from different buildings, because the way a hotel operates is not the same way as a retail shopping center operates. It's not the same way as a residential building operates, not the same way as a commercial building operates. So it is going to be wide.
Sorry, Fahad.
So I think the IoT and machine learning is the way forward for the maintenance. Ideally, I hope that we achieve the reliability-centered maintenance, which is a balance between both. What means actually to establish a failure management strategy for the assets. So it's a balance between a predictive, based on machine learning analysis and data collection and IoT devices, and at the same time the traditional planned and preventive maintenance schedules that is commonly used.
Perfect. Thank you, Tarek. I'm sure you have more to say, but let's go to Christos to have a last word from each, and then we need to conclude. Christos, do you agree with Tarek, or you have a different opinion?
I agree with Tarek, but I think agree more with Fahad in terms of saying that there is no one single point solution that can actually somebody say, I will pinpoint on this, saying that this is the technology that will actually prevail. I do feel, though, that to be fair, that IoT, as I said in the beginning, and sensors and machine to machine, it is something that is going to be here and it's going to be actually be more and more present within the next years.
Thank you, Christos. Thank you, Fahad. Sorry, gentlemen, for cutting it so short. And I would say so short, although it's been an hour, but it feels like 10 minutes. Just to take a conclusion, and please feel free to jump in here with any other conclusion. So what I understood now is that the pandemic have supported us in going more towards implementing newer technologies, however, have slowed down or slowed us down on many of the other technologies that we were planning to implement. Hopefully 2021, we will implement those technologies, because specifically predictive or technologies that assist us to become more predictive more efficient, harvest data better, analyze data better, and utilize data better to better implement, which save costs as well as increase efficiencies, increase our security, and streamline our processes. Am I right in what I said?
Yes, absolutely.
Any last words from any of you gentlemen?
I'll say that we are very lucky that all of us, we are actually living and working within a country that actually provides this kind of marvels in terms of engineering, and be at the front end of all the technology in order to have this kind of discussions, all of us, and exchange, creative kind of ideas.
You said all the words that I wanted to say. Let's listen to Fahad.
Just adding on to Christos, I mean, it's again, to have the opportunity to front end, to have the opportunity to do these things, you need to have the asset first, and then having these amazing buildings, having these amazing engineering marvels enables us engineers to try and do a lot of R&D on what's best, and then obviously such platforms helps us to discuss and argue different viewpoints, which generates more ideas.
Thank you, Fahad. Tariq?
Absolutely, I agree with both gentlemen. We are very lucky, and I meet people from all over the world in conferences and functions, and all of them are really impressed of the way facility management is advancing in the UAE, and the support we are getting from the clients, the approach of service provider, and most importantly, the support of the leadership.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for Terrapin, PropIT Middle East, and it's been a pleasure to have you, and a great discussion. You've enlightened me. I hope that we've had the same impact on our viewers and our listeners. I'll hand over back to Rebecca, and enjoy your day.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Really brilliant panel. Thank you to Makram for moderating, and thank you to Danaos Projects for sponsoring that session. And we'll be 5 minutes away from the next session. And thanks again to our panelists for that great session. Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you.